Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to quickly get you up to speed on the key global shifts.
That's right. Today we're covering roughly April 11th through to May 11th, 2025.
We've pulled insights from various sources to give you the essentials. Let's jump right into geopolitics and security.
Agreed. Plenty happening there, particularly with Ukraine and Russia.
Yes, Ukraine put forward a call for a 30-day ceasefire, didn't they? Starting May 12th as a condition for direct talks.
They did. And interestingly, Russia didn't dismiss it outright. They even suggested Turkey could host potential negotiations.
That feels, well, significant. Maybe the most concrete possibility for de-escalation we've seen since, summer 2024?
It certainly feels like an opening, perhaps the first real one. You have Ukraine setting a clear condition, Russia suggesting a venue.
It's a specific kind of signaling, isn't it?
It is. But, it's still very tentative, fragile even. The next few weeks will be crucial to see if it leads anywhere.
Definitely one to watch. Okay, shifting gears. South China Sea, there was an incident near Scarborough Shoal.
Yeah, a near collision involving Chinese and Filipino vessels. Things got quite heated.
And both sides put out footage, right, around April 15th.
Exactly. Each accusing the other of, quote, dangerous maneuvers. This kind of public tit for tat really raises the stakes.
Especially in such a critical waterway. We're talking about, a $3 trillion trade corridor passing through there?
That's the figure, yes. So any instability there has immediate global economic implications. It's not just a regional dispute.
And looming on the horizon are those joint naval drills, U.S., Japan, Philippines, Balikatan Plus in late May?
Correct. And while they're framed as enhancing regional security, deterrence, well, Beijing might see them differently.
Could amplify tensions further.
It's certainly possible. It adds another layer to an already complex situation.
All right, let's pivot to macro and markets. The Federal Reserve decision.
All right, the Fed, they held interest rates steady, keeping them in that 4.25 to 4.5% range.
And the reasoning they gave was tariff uncertainty.
That was the stated rationale, yeah. It really highlights how intertwined trade policy and monetary policy have become. They're basically waiting to see the impact of these new tariffs.
So this feeds into that narrative we've been hearing, higher for longer interest rates.
Absolutely. And higher U.S. rates mean higher borrowing costs around the world. It affects governments, businesses, everything.
Fed Chair Powell also flagged stagflation risk, didn't he, in the May 7th update, linked to the tariffs.
He did. Stagflation, that nasty mix of sluggish growth and high inflation, is clearly on their radar as a potential consequence.
So how are the markets digesting all this? Any shift in expectations?
Well, yes. The futures markets reacted. They've pushed back the timeline for the first expected rate cut now, looking more towards September.
So a direct consequence of the Fed's caution and these broader economic worries?
Precisely. The market's adjusting to that higher for longer reality, at least for now.
And during this period, we also had the IMF and World Bank spring meetings. What were the main takeaways there?
The big headlines were global debt levels now around 94% of global GDP, which is huge, and also slowing international trade.
Worrisome trends. What was the general recommendation from the ministers?
The term used was prudent easing, so basically a cautious approach. They see the need to maybe ease policy eventually to support growth, but they're very aware of the high debt levels. It's a balancing act.
Interesting. And for listeners thinking about investment strategy, any noticeable trends?
Yeah, something that seems to be working well or outperforming is this barbell positioning.
Okay, break that down.
It means holding both short-duration treasuries, which are relatively safe when rates are uncertain, and, on the other end, quality equities, companies with strong balance sheets.
So avoiding big bets on where long-term rates are going.
Essentially, yes. That strategy seems to have done better than just making outright bets on bond duration in this particular environment.
Got it. Okay, let's move to climate and disasters. There was a significant earthquake in Ecuador.
Yes, sadly. A magnitude 6.3 quake hit on April 30th, and it had a notable impact on their energy sector.
Right. It hit their largest refinery, Esmeralda's. That's a big facility, 110,000 barrels a day capacity.
It is. And they had to declare force majeure.
Which means basically they can't meet their contractual obligations due to something beyond their control.
Exactly. Now, Petroecuador, the state oil company, said domestic fuel supplies are okay for now.
For now always sounds a bit ominous.
It does. It just underscores the fragility of energy infrastructure sometimes, particularly in regions like the Andes, potential supply chain issues down the line.
And elsewhere, Europe saw some unusually early heat.
It did. Southern Spain, Greece,
hmm
they saw temperatures topping 40 Celsius. That's over 104 Fahrenheit right at the start of May.
Weeks ahead of the usual summer peak.
Weeks ahead. It really emphasizes this trend, what people are calling the new normal, of intense spring heat waves, a clear climate change signal.
Okay, turning to science and technology, OpenAI always seems to be in the news.
Always. They launched their new reasoning-centric models in April '03 and 20 Mini.
Reasoning-centric, and this affected their other plans.
It seems so. It looks like they've pushed the release of their next big model, GPT-5, to midsummer.
Why the delay?
They're citing the need for more integration testing. Suggests they want to make sure it's really robust before rolling it out.
And how did the market react to that roadmap update?
Pretty positively, actually. Chip stocks, cloud computing stocks saw a bit of a boost. Clarity on the roadmap seems to have been welcomed.
Interesting. And elsewhere in cutting-edge tech, the fusion race seems to be heating up.
Yeah, there was some analysis of satellite imagery from back in January. It suggests China's laser ignition fusion facility is, well, considerably larger than the U.S. equivalent, the National Ignition Facility, or NIF.
How much larger?
About 50% larger, based on the imagery. And the analysis suggests it could potentially be commissioned, maybe operational, as early as 2026.
Wow. So that competition is definitely accelerating.
No question about it. It's a global race.
Let's touch on health and society. It was World Immunization Week recently.
That was April 24th to 30th. And the big focus this year was on closing vaccine gaps, trying to get routine immunization rates back up globally.
Is there a specific target?
Yes, the WHO is pushing what they call the 90 by 30 pledge. That's aiming for 90% coverage for routine vaccines like measles in every single country by the year 2030.
And what's driving this renewed push? Is there a particular concern?
There is, unfortunately. We're seeing an alarming rise in measles outbreaks, particularly in lower-income countries where coverage has slipped.
A preventable disease making a comeback.
Exactly. It really hammers home why maintaining high immunization levels is just so critical for public health.
Okay, finally, a quick look at culture and sport. The big football match, Barcelona versus Real Madrid, El Clásico.
Ah, yes, the Clásico on May 11th. It was apparently a real nail-biter, a 4-3 win for Barcelona.
Huge thriller. And that result had big implications for the La Liga title race, right?
Huge implications. It left Barcelona 7 points clear at the top with just 3 games left to play.
So they're very close now.
Very close. One more win for Barca, or if Real Madrid drops points, Barcelona secures their 28th La Liga title.
And this was their 4th straight win against Madrid.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
Underlines their current dominance in that particular rivalry. Quite a run.
Okay, let's look ahead with our forward radar. So covering the next month or so, May 12th to mid-June, what should we be watching?
Well, quite a few things. May 17th, you've got the G7 summit in Turin. We're expecting maybe an AI safety code to come out of that, plus talks on energy security.
Okay.
Then, late May, those Balikatan plus drills in the South China Sea we mentioned. That'll be a key stress test for deterrence there.
Right. Connects back.
June 5th, OPEC plus meets. Big question is whether they'll start phasing out those supply cuts from 2023.
Always crucial for oil markets.
Then June 11th, the European Central Bank decision. Could we see the first Eurozone rate cut since 2020? Market seems to think it's possible.
That would be significant.
And finally, mid-June, COP29 pre-talks in Bonn, Germany. They'll be working on draft text for a global carbon pricing corridor.
So a lot happening. It sounds like key themes for the next cycle will likely be ongoing trade and tariff talks, maybe those AI safety frameworks taking shape, and unfortunately, probably more early summer heat alerts.
That seems like a fair summary of the dominant themes, yes.
Well, this has been our deep dive, aiming to give you that concise overview of the key global currents between April 11th and May 11th, 2025.
Hopefully useful.
As you digest all this, maybe consider how these different threads, geopolitics, economics, climate, tech, are increasingly weaving together, shaping the landscape ahead.